because like she's making the decision to not even visit her family. Like she definitely has the capacity to turn down an invite to like dinner at grandma's. You know what I mean? So I think it was
The
like
dick was too good. Hello, and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. We are three Latinx besties reading romance. Right? That's what we do. We take turns, and this month was my turn, and we will be discussing When Stars Have Teeth by Dani Trujillo, friend of the pod, friend of mine anyway. And this is a contemporary romance about Indigenous characters written by an Indigenous author. So if I'm looking a little ashy, I'm just getting out of work and the semester has started again. Back to life, back to reality. I'm also moving. I have a background up now, but if the background was not here, you would see boxes on boxes on boxes. Can't get too many. So yes, the energy is low and cozy, I want to say. My background is the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. I live about allegedly 45 minutes from this place, but I mean, it takes me about an hour and a half because of traffic. So if I take BART, it's less time, but it's still pretty far. But it features pretty prominently in the book and in the cover of the book. So I figured, why not? And then I am having an Olipop today because I heard my arch nemesis was going to be drinking. I'm kidding. I just wanted a pick me up that wasn't caffeinated. So yes, Tashai, what's going on with you?
Not a lot. I'm drinking water. I'm trying to hydrate. It's been a rough few weeks. So I'm just here to see your beautiful faces. And be reminded that I know people outside of the computer screen, even though I'm seeing you guys on the computer screen right now. I've touched your shoulders. I've nuzzled you. I know you're real. So I'm just here to share with y'all.
I feel it. I also feel like it's different. Like I feel like if I'm talking to coworkers on the screen or people that I don't necessarily respect, it's different. But when I see someone that I love, it's different.
Yeah.
It's quality time. It's quality time.
Like, oh hi. Yeah, every other I have a couple of good friends that I do talk to, but man, sometimes it's like, can I please stop hearing your voice? Can your voice please stop? Please.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being
Happy
here.
You guys, babies.
Yeah, thank you. And then Andrea with a very interesting background. What's going on?
my background is a bed that looks like a sushi roll. No spoilers, but there's some steamy scenes in this book and there's sushi in this book. There's a lot of takeout. Our love interests, one of our love interests love language is definitely gifts. Whether they be accepted or not. So I was trying to combine the food and the sex, which led to an unfortunate Google search before I decided to switch out my keywords and just look for beds that looked like sushi instead of beds with food in them. But yeah, I'm still wearing my eye patch. You know, it's been 3 months now. I don't know if it's been 3 hangouts. This might be our 3rd hangout. Yeah. Maybe by the next one I won't have the patch anymore. We can only hope. But I am drinking a Poppy. That is their Sprite version of it. And I don't think I've had a Sprite in a long time. So that's nice. I remembered that was what I used to drink during family reunions because I hated all of their sodas.
So, like I said, we are reading When Stars Have Teeth. Let's go around and see what. Well, never mind. Hang on. Let's go around and hear what the book is about and learn a little bit about the author, and then I'll talk to you about why I chose this book. Buckle up. I'm kidding. There's no reason. Okay, go on.
You want me to go first? Cool. All right. So, about the book, When Stars Have Teeth by Dani Trujillo. Buffy Yellowbird knows exactly what she wants. She went to college, got her degree, moved to the city, and found a big girl job. Working at a San Francisco urban Indian center is a dream come true. except that it constantly fans the flames of anger stuck in her belly. Thanks to a non-native board, Buffy spends every day fighting for the community to have what they need. With each day at work as terrible as a Monday, Buffy doesn't have time for relationships. She barely has time for her siblings. Santiago Morales is an ultra suave immigration lawyer that keeps showing up in Buffy's life. Despite his playboy looks, Santiago is a family man ready to settle down. Unable to resist one another, the two agree on an associates with benefits arrangement that quickly dissolves the walls between them. Before long, Buffy finds herself craving Santiago for more than a romp in the sheets. Their associates arrangement was evolving into something more. Faced with accepting the darkest parts of herself or leaving Santiago behind forever, Buffy must decide if she is worthy of love. I guess I read that.
I read that. What about you, Drea? Did you read that?
Yeah, I read that.
You read that?
I was just laughing at Tashai.
Tell us about Dani Trujillo.
Yes. So, Dani Trujillo is a fiction storyteller born of Pueblo and Mexican descent. The desert is her happy place and serves as inspiration for many of her works. She holds a Bachelor of Anthropology from the University of Hawaii and a Master of Forensic Behavioral Science from Alliant International University. She currently resides on the East Coast with her husband, two spooky black cats, an elder chihuahua named after jeans, and the plethora of ghosts inhabiting her 1949 home. Dani writes adult romance under the name Dani Trujillo, and she writes horror under D.H. Trujillo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So we've hit the point where I have to say why I picked the book. And honestly, it's just because my friend wrote it, which is a double-edged sword. I agree. I mean, I have to say it's a double-edged sword because, like, I feel like it opens up to, you know, we're critiquing the book. I don't want it to be a sword. So, Dani, if you're listening to this, get out of here, girl. This ain't for you. We are the readers. You're the writer. Have your editor come and listen to our critiques if you want, if you want her to, but not the space. I mean it. Get out of here. Okay. So yeah. I picked it because she wrote it. I know her through Instagram. I read the first book and enjoyed it quite a bit. I was really looking forward to this one. And then very recently we were at the Bay Area Book Fest where I attended her romance panel and moderated a horror panel. So I was just interested in reading her book. I was excited to read an Indigenous romance. I don't feel like I've read any, at least not on purpose. And so I figured two birds, one seed. Let's do it. We are gonna get into the book. We are entering spoiler territory. So if you have not read the book, or Dani, if you're still here, here's your chance to leave the call. Fortify yourself and come back another day. Or if you haven't read it and are interested, but don't want spoilers, then stop here. Go ahead and read it, get a copy, and then come back and listen to our discussion and let us know if you agree.
I'm laughing because sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm saying I'm laughing because I would absolutely have listened to the episode.
I know. I feel like I'm just saying, like, bitch, I told you not to.
That's why I was laughing because I was like, "Hey, Chris caught me in the act. Like that would be me."
Caught you again. I feel like the two were like, I can see you.
I mean, if you are going to keep any of this in the final video, I will say she's such a cutie. She's so cute. I just looked her up, looked at some of their photos online. Qué linda. Pero vete.
Stunner. Okay, so let's get into our overall impressions, kind of like overall how much we enjoyed the book, what we liked about it, what we didn't like about it. And I have a couple of questions specifically about like romance, chemistry, personality, bitchiness, native pain, etc. So we'll get into those things and whatever comes up during our discussion. So yeah, Tashai, hit me with your overall thoughts. What did you think of When Stars Have Teeth?
Tahawks. I think I just expected more from the story, given the setting, given the character descriptions. I thought that there would be more. I think we get put into this world where the main character is working in like a really stressful field, and the details of the work that she does, I found that like really interesting, and I thought we would hear a little more about that. Or, you know, when we find out that the love interest is like an immigration lawyer, there are like hints of what they do, which I found really interesting because I do like to learn about people who work in different spaces than where I work. But we got like little hints of that, and then it just kind of like dives into um a lot of just them like miscommunicating or not communicating at all. And it's hinted that the main character like moves away from her family, but you don't really get information on why for like a while. Like it's just, oh, I miss my family. Oh, but I haven't like them talking about why they miss their family so much. But then you don't really hear like why she's like not trying to talk to them on the phone. And so then all of that kind of falls to the background of the romance. But the romance, the like speed of it confused me because it felt like for him it was like instant chemistry, like super attracted to her. And then I know there was something in the first hookup where she's like telling him that she like doesn't want to do or doesn't want to move fast, and then he kind of like goes for it anyway, and like makes the like puts the move on her, and that always rubs me the wrong way. Like I don't care how hot somebody is, I don't love you assuming that someone's okay with you doing something. So as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, is it going to be like this kind of thing where now I have to be convinced he's not an asshole? And then he turns out to be super nice. But like he's putting out all of these like positive, like, oh, like I care about your job, I want to help the community, I help people who don't have access to help, here's my grandmother, like all of these like positive nice things. And then she's so like resistant to it, just like in such a strong way, that I like didn't get that she even liked him until suddenly it's like I'm in love with him, and oh my god, but I'm gonna leave. But I don't wanna leave, but I'm gonna come back. And I didn't, like, get the chemistry between them 2, like, at all. I didn't really understand it. I didn't really, like, I wasn't into it. I thought that the settings were really nice. I thought the world building was good. And I think, like, I wish I'd gotten more details about certain things, but yeah, I didn't I it's not super memorable either, which sucks because when it's a well-written scene, it's like a really well-written scene. So I thought it would be more, and it's not what it ended up being for me. But I thought the grandma seemed really sweet, so I'm sad that her character passes away. Spoiler alert.
We're kind of like on the same track, but I also found myself not weirdly, I am always like, I want more. Like I definitely wanted to see more of the work that they were doing, like be at the job while the job was happening. And I don't love it when authors do this. I recently read a soccer romance where anytime the soccer was going to start to happen, the player would enter like the zone and it would be like, and then it was over. And it's like, hey, what the? Where's the soccer? I'm so mad. It was I won't tell you the title now. It was a St. Martin's Press book, and we are not reading any of those. But yeah, I hear you. We'll talk about it. We'll have space to vent about Buffy and why she is how she is. But Drea, give me your overall impressions.
Let me collect myself as I try to think of how many fencing scenes are in my book and whether they will be enough for you.
It's a middle grade book, like, and it's in poetry. Like, you don't have a ton of space on the page,
okay.
but like, all
I'll try not to be too nervous about it now. Now, I read this book pretty fast. It was a very fast, light read. Like this is the kind of thing that I could see like my sister taking to the beach. Um, it's definitely and I think we mentioned this before. Well, maybe we mentioned it to each other, but it's kind of like a lower stakes romance. So people who don't want that super, super high tension, this is for you. I think in general, I like the author's first book more, but that's like me, a personal thing. And I think it's because, like Chris said, we saw the jobs a lot more in the first book. And we've talked about this as a book club. I still remember what was the book where she was a college professor and you were like, I want to read her thesis.
Yeah, Danny, Get a Life, Danny Brown.
Yes. Yeah. And we were like, okay, but show us more of your research. Yeah, I think I would have liked to see more of the jobs, but also, and this is just a personal preference thing, any book that is set in any sort of natural preserve kind of situation, or in the forest or in the outdoors, or in the case of Danny's first book, in this like really remote indigenous reserve, like that's gonna automatically like bump up the ratings for me over something set in like a city. So I think like for some readers it might be the opposite and they might like this book more, but for me, like the combo of the setting and the jobs and the other one is what I thought I was going to be getting in this one. I don't think I read the description before reading it. So I had no idea it was going to be set in the city, and I was like, "Oh, darn," cuz I was hoping to go back to that place because I knew it was like related. Um but yeah, I mean, it was fine. Um it wasn't like a book that I would like run to recommend to other people unless I knew they were into, like my sister would probably enjoy this. She would probably say it didn't have enough sex, but if you just amped up the sex a little bit, this would be like her kind of book. But yeah, no, I think it was just a weird combo of like not loving the setting, needing more of the jobs. And then yeah, I didn't love either of the two main characters, although I loved him a lot more than her. Um and not that I always have to but it's like I didn't when sometimes you like hate a character and you're like fun, like what do you call that when you're like hate watching something? I don't know what the phrase is, but like this wasn't that. I wasn't hate watching it and I wasn't love watching it. It was like something in the middle for me.
That is the term, like hate watching. That's
Yeah.
like
Hate watching,
we
hate
know that
reading. I've
hate
hate read
reading.
all of the Horseman books. I've hate read. That
Yeah.
was me hate reading.
Well, or I was thinking of that series where like we read one book with Only
Yeah.
Lovers and then you and I read like the next
And I just
two, like,
hate read the next 3
and
books.
then we just hated so much we couldn't finish the series.
That's one of our lost episodes, Air Awakens. That's one of our
'Cause
lost
you're just
episodes.
committed at that point, and it's like, "Ugh, but Dale, I'm already like here. What the fuck happens to this character?"
No,
And
it
then you
was like
keep reading
it
it.
was
It's like, oh god, this is so stupid.
yeah, it was pretty glitchy and I wasn't able to. It was not a complete episode. Like it just cut out. So anyway, lost episode, Air Awakens. Well, we did read a couple of them. I remember that. Thanks for doing that with me. Okay.
I don't think I remember Air Awakens at all.
No, it was not good.
I mean, I couldn't tell you what it was about at all. I know it had
Girl,
magic.
I read 4 of those books. I'll tell you, but it's not that good. It's not that good.
I read 4 of them too, but I still couldn't tell you.
Well, all right, cool. Well, thanks for giving me your overall impressions. I feel like I'm falling pretty much like alongside you. Maybe like I leaned more towards I did actually really enjoy this. I think that I mean, I knew that it took place in San Francisco because the bridge is on the the bridge is on the cover and it's mentioned as well. I didn't mind it not being in a remote like reservation, mainly because like obviously indigenous folks live everywhere. And so I like seeing the challenges that were presented in an urban setting. I do have to say that I wish that the city played a bigger part in it. Like very much like I feel like the word that or what I'm trying to say is that the world didn't feel as fleshed out as it could be, both in terms of the setting, in terms of the city, especially because it's such a big city. And you know how sometimes when books take place in a big city, like that city is almost like a character. Like we read a new city, a book set in New York, the New York is playing a big part of it. You know what I mean? And if not done well, then Tashaya will rip you a new asshole. That's just what it is. That's just what's going to happen. And so San Francisco, I was kind of like expecting to see a bit more of the city. But yeah, it didn't come out as much. What they did as a profession, like seeing him in the courtroom, I wanted to see her in that board meeting. I know that that sounds boring, but I think maybe having a little bit more of what their personalities were inside of that, as opposed to like outside of it, they're kind of displacing that energy. They're like frustrated, they're tired, and they want to have sex with each other. And I feel like that's only one part of the character. Like we have the part that is lusting after each other. We have the parts that are like dissatisfied or like frustrated with their work. And then because their work is so important to them, I kind of want to see them doing that too. So I felt like that was missing as well. And so overall, as far as like setting in character, I feel like it could have been fleshed out a bit more. And I knew Tashai was gonna fucking hate it when he kept pressing to be a family, like, you know, to be the family guy. Because I think that in terms of the romance, like the assumption is, yeah, she's into it. But in the real world, where I feel like we all have had this kind of like person in our lives where we're like, I feel like I'm being very clear with you and you are not listening to me. And so I feel like it always triggers that response of like, fuck off, you know, like I know that in the book it's meant to be charming, they're meant to be together, we're barreling towards that happily ever after no matter what. But in the moment it's aggravating. It's like, dude, shut up. Like I told you I didn't want to fuck it anyway. I'm glad he fed her though. She needed to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because for me, like that didn't even bother me that much, but I have like a visceral response whenever I read hookup scenes where people don't use condoms. I'm like, you've never met
we, ha-
this person. Like they said you don't
we
know.
have to talk about it. We have to
Have
talk
you
about it.
seen- Yeah, sure.
Siempre es como que
No, I know. And I was taken aback. But let's
and
get
like,
into
I know it was like, oh yeah, I get tested all the time and it's fine or whatever, but I was still like,
People
okay,
lie.
people lie.
okay, so then, well, but then also like, not only do people lie, but then you getting tested again the next day won't do shit if you already caught whatever the person gave you. Like,
Yeah, no, for real. I feel like it's, obviously like books and authors don't need to show us the paragon of morality, but like if you're reading this, kids, don't do this at home. Don't take anyone's word for it. Because there's things that they might not even know that they have. Like they could give you like HPV, super common, doesn't show outward symptoms, could give you cancer later in life. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's your life is on the line. So, yeah, well, let's get into the nitty gritty. I have a couple of questions for you, and then we'll talk a little bit. I took notes because I feel like my questions don't address what we've talked about in the overall impression, so we'll get to it. One of the things that came up a lot during our chat as like we were all reading the book and kind of like making our way towards the hangout was that it was very difficult to understand Buffy and like her mindset as far as like work, her family, and relationships, most importantly. And I guess I want to know like what was it about like her choices or her personality that made it hard for you to understand? Like what was not working there? For you. I feel like I tried to be like more understanding, but I want to hear what you have to say, and then we can jump in and we can talk about it a bit more. Yeah. So technically, Tashai is on the docket, but let me know.
So, this is me trying to come up with an answer right now because I hadn't thought about this, but I feel
I
like
can go first if you want.
no, it's okay. Because I feel like you have someone like Buffy who works a stressful job and is like independent and is in a big city. And it's like familiar to me. I've been living in a big city for the last like it'll be 13 years this year. Like I've worked a like high, obviously not as important as like the work that she's doing, but I've worked like a high pressure job before. Sorry, my dog, I thought he was having an accident. I've worked a high pressure job. I've been in a high pressure job before. Um and trying to like date in the city is very difficult. Like meeting people you can trust, like you don't have time for anything. So like the setting and the circumstances are familiar, but I feel like any sort of thought we got from her point of view was like reactionary to things. And so I feel like there wasn't enough attention given into like pulling the thread of why she was feeling a certain way. It was like she's got regret about her family. I don't really know too much about it when it first gets introduced. And then it's like switch flips and it's her reacting to the guy and having a really like visceral reaction to him, switch flips, very frustrated about work. It was like very flip-floppy across like 4 or 5 specific things. But it didn't feel like even when she was talking to her friend, I think her roommate, right? Even when she was like talking to her, it felt like there wasn't a lot of like vulnerability or like truly talking about what was going on. And so it felt like reading her character is probably similar to like meeting her in person where like you don't get a read into who this person is. And so when you have someone who's like abrasive and you don't get as much insight into like the underlayer of that, it's hard to like that person. Like if you're gonna be like a tough person but soft on the inside, like I need to get more soft on the inside to believe that that's what's going on. Otherwise, you come off as just like aggressive for the sake of aggressive. I don't know. Like I don't remember because I honestly read this probably like 2 weeks ago, and at this point, I can't even remember. Like, did she get cheated on in the past? Right? I'm assuming she got betrayed at some point because her reaction to him was so like, "Oh, I've been burned terribly before so many times that I like don't trust dudes now." But like, I didn't hear her telling her friend that. I didn't hear any explanations because the excuse was, "Well, we worked." He's like, I don't know him, like he's a stranger. And then it was, oh, but we like work too closely together. Like I didn't really get her reasoning for things. And so um I think it was just that. It was just like hard to understand that point of view. And so the like abrasiveness is just came off as abrasiveness. Like it just comes off as like a tough exterior. Um and being like, oh, I'm not gonna hook up with him. And then I don't see the like thought process of like changing her mind about it in a way that like makes sense after she's been so pushy about no. Like I just don't understand her decision making, I guess. So it was hard to understand her.
I think for me, it was two things. Although I agree with a lot of what Tashai said too. I think one of the things is that I feel like it's very, very clear from the beginning that she wants to be with this dude, but just like keeps stopping her. Like, I think it would be different if she was like, no, I won't, I don't want this. And I believed her, but I don't believe her because she's like, ugh, he didn't leave. How dare he? Oh, he made me coffee the way I love it. Ugh, gross, but let me drink a second mug. It's like just the way she went about things, like I knew she was secretly really pleased with everything he was doing. Do you know what I mean? So it was like hard to like root for her or root for her decisions when I knew that inside she wanted him to be doing everything he was doing. Um and would constantly just like almost like she was just constantly like lying to herself like no, I don't want this and I'm turned off by this and this is too much, but like we as the reader knew that she did actually like these things. I think that was one. I think the second thing is I love a grumpy, emotionally unavailable love interest. Like we all know this. Those are my favorite kinds of love interests. And I think I didn't realize until now that I think one of the reasons it works better when it's the love interest versus the main character is that when it's the love interest that's emotionally unavailable, you get like the little thrill of the chase with the main character, like, ooh, he smiled at me, like, oh my god, I'm making so much progress, like there's a heart in there, I'm gonna melt it, you know, and you get to go along that positive ride. But when the main character is the emotionally like closed off one, then it's like a negative ride, just like constantly. And you're not celebrating anything because everything that like he's enjoying, she's shutting down. And so I think that wasn't as nice of an experience for me. And this is something new that I learned about myself. I'm like, okay, I do love a grumpy, like robotic, like give me the most icy person ever, but I want it to be the love interest, not the person whose head I'm in.
That makes sense to me. I agree because
That makes a lot of
because
sense. Yeah. That
they're
makes a lot of sense.
selling you that, oh, she's actually interested. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm in her point of view right now, and she's not liking it. She's not liking any of this.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't feel like she likes it.
yeah. What I took away from it, I admit that as I am cutting her some slack, I am also filling in the blanks that I'm filling in the blanks myself. And I've just felt like I could understand her despite there not being an incident that would have like burned her so bad that she, you know what I mean? I just truly felt like she was this type of person who felt like truly that she just didn't deserve it. And she like lied to herself a lot about it. Like that's how I saw it. I feel like I think that both things can be true. I feel like you can yearn for that, but opening up yourself to it is like too dangerous for some people. And I'm talking about like IRL. You know, there are some folks who they will love you, they will like go to bat for you, they'll take a bullet for you, but they'll be just assholes because that there needs to be a distance there. And I'm not saying that's good, healthy, you know, I'm not saying that that works. I felt like she was actually incredibly toxic to, to Santiago. Um, but I felt like, first of all, he could take it, you know, like he knew what he wanted. I feel like he knew what he was signing up for the first few times that she interacted with him. I feel like he saw more to her than what I did, even though I wasn't her point of view, which was like, like you deserve so much better than this. Um, um, and I think we all have been, at least I have been. I have definitely been like in Santiago's shoes of like, I definitely love this person. I care about them and I can save them or I can bring them out of their shell. I can, you know, do all of these things for them. But it doesn't matter how much you do, how much you show them, how much you prove it. Like they don't believe that they deserve anything that you're doing. And so I feel like that's where that disconnect was happening whenever they had those miscommunications. I chalked it up to that. She just doesn't feel like she's not there yet. She's not ready to like herself enough in order to let Santiago in. Um, and I feel like she kicked and screamed and fought him right up until the end. That made a lot of sense. But again, I'm coming at it from a point of view of like I said, I'm filling in a lot of the blanks. I feel like story wise, it could have been done. I feel like, yes, showing that soft marshmallow interior a little bit more uh, would have helped me come to that conclusion a lot sooner. And I feel like would help the audience understand that she's not an incorrigible bitch because she can be. It's because she feels like maybe she has to be. Um, and I feel like in people in real life, I feel like folks with like trauma and stuff like that, you know, stuff, people who have just been through some things, they're like this. And they just require so much patience that I just don't think everybody has. I'm not saying that this is the case. I just feel like taking it outside, I have encountered people who are like this, who just push and push and push people away. They don't want to be alone, but they just don't know how to receive that. There's like a dysfunction there. So I thought that was interesting. And I felt like even though it was low stakes, situation wise. Like, I don't feel like anybody was going to lose their jobs or whatever. I did feel like internally for her, the stakes were high because it meant that she would have to fundamentally change everything that she thought about herself and about what she was going to deserve as far as like being a daughter, being a sibling, being a partner, being a roommate, being a friend, you know, like, you know, she's got everyone at arm's length and now she has to figure out how to like reverse that. And it can be an uncomfortable experience. So those are my thoughts on it. I don't know if you have any additional ones, but that's kind of like what I was thinking about. as I was reading or going through the
No,
journey with her.
I agree with you on that. I think maybe I just like it's not like as nice to read about. Like, you know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
know obviously like we've all been in situations like that in real life. Um, but I think it's just like hard to read it if you're not giving me like a little extra
Yeah.
to
I
hold
feel like
on
when
to.
we read Stars in Their Eyes, this it was kind of like similar of like, there's this person who's very willing and very, just doing everything they can to show this person how much they love them. And this other person's like, I see you and I appreciate it, but also like, no. Like what are you gonna do? You can't force someone to be how you, as much as you'd want to get in their brain and like rewire them. That's
Yeah,
just not how
I
people
think
work.
for me, I think, and the reason I said when I explained it, the reason
Mhm.
I said like, oh, I know that she wants it. I think that was the issue that was like
Mhm.
bugging me because she'd be like, absolutely not. I don't want a relationship. Okay, I'll come over for dinner with your grandma and like sleep. Like those things were like so confusing to like,
Mhm.
obviously you want this because if you truly did not want to be here, I believe that you would not be here.
Mhm.
Like, because like she's making the decision to not even visit her family. Like she definitely has the capacity to turn down an invite to like dinner at grandma's. You know what I mean? So I think it
But
was
the
like
dick was too good.
that's
Yeah, but then if she actually if she's going, but you're not getting the feeling that she actually does want to go and she's saying all these things, but then keeps showing up and like taking the niceness that's being offered, but like not outwardly being like, "Oh yeah, this is something I want," then it feels like she's just like taking it because it's being given, like se está
Yeah.
aprovechando.
No, of course.
And then it's like, well, what
It's
is he getting out of
highly
I'm
toxic
like,
character.
"Yo, he's, like, trying to be supportive of you and, like, being respectful and stuff, and you can't, like, say, like, 'Yo, actually, this isn't my love language.'"
I only have one love language. It's physical touch. That's
Yes.
it.
That's it. Leave the food in my table and walk away.
Well, speaking on that, so like then, considering what we've talked about Buffy and, how she treated Santiago, how she was kind of like picturing herself, then what did you think of like the romance? Considering what we've discussed, the romance, the build up, what did you think of that story? I know in the overall impressions to Shaw, you said that you're like, I didn't get it. I feel like it went really fast. Um, could you elaborate more? And then we had a couple of like spicy sushi sex scenes. What did you think of those as well?
Um, Elaborate on the romance. Okay, I just feel like it was a switch flip of her being like, I don't think this is a thing," to like a couple pages later, but like I just care about him so much that like I can't imagine not being with him. And I'm like, when did this happen? Like, tú te levantaste and now you feel this way, which okay, if that's what happened, that's what happened. But like I didn't read that happening. It just like happened off camera. Off camera, she had like an experience of like falling in love with him. And then suddenly it's like, oh, it's always been this way. I've always felt this way. So I think it was just like jarring to then have it be like, ugh, because in Stars in Their Eyes, you see the like enemies, respect, friendship, affection, love. Like you see the progression. And here it's like Santiago's super into her because she's so hot and then he's super impressed by her and she's so smart and he's like fascinated. So he is enthralled from the beginning. And with her, I'm like, I can't tell if you like him, and because I can't tell if you like him, I don't like what's happening because if in the real world this was happening and you were putting out signals the way you're putting them now, he's creepy. He like won't leave you alone. He's showing up and he's being like pushy and the vibes say that you're not into what's happening and then you like hook up and you didn't seem like you wanted to hook up, but then you do hook up and like yeah, it like the probably the spiciness after the first scene were, like, spicy, like, it was nice, but the first one caught me off guard because I'm like she keeps being like, "I'm not interested, I'm not into this, like, this isn't gonna happen," and then he's like, "Oh, but you know you want it," type of thing, and I'm like, "Ugh, please." So there's just a lot of mixed signals. I couldn't understand why anyone was after anyone. I'm like, he likes he's a masochist. A él le gusta que lo rechacen. Like he's like Pepe Le Pew. He just keeps getting rejected and keeps getting beat in the face, and keeps coming back for more. And then she's like, "Oh, I guess we're in love now."
Yeah, he's like the subject of that one book, like Porque los hombres aman a las cabronas. You know, like that, like why men love bitches. Like that's him. That's something.
So I think for me, the switch up with the whole loving him, I was fine with that. I feel like sometimes it does happen where people are like, "Wait a minute, I actually love this person." That didn't throw me as much. What threw me was going from, "Wait a minute, I love this person," to then marrying him like 3 days later. Because that is such a huge commitment jump that I just could not wrap my head around this person who the whole book has been saying, "I don't even want a boyfriend. I don't even want like a regular hookup," to them being like, "Let's get married and be each other's partners forever." Like that's what threw me. I was okay with the whole like I realized I had an epiphany. I realized I love you and I want to be with you. Pero the marriage and obviously I saw it coming too because it's a romance, right? But the marriage was the plot twist that I did not see coming. And it really shook me. I just could not believe that they were getting married. So that for me was the big like, "Oh my god, are you sure?" Like let's think this through. Wait, let's back up a minute. Um
She's like, "No,
but
I'm doing it. Let's do it. We did it. We're doing it today." And then his brother, was it his
his
brother
cousin,
who just
Cousin.
hated her? Who
he
was
was
like,
like, "Yeah, let's go get married."
he's like, "Why? Why is this happening? I don't like her. I don't trust her." And I'm like, yeah, she's been a bitch this whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was a bit of a voice of reason there. I don't want to interrupt you if you had more to say,
No, no,
Andrea.
no. I was just, I mean, with the like the sex was fine. Is I mean, they seemed like they were really into each other. They had sex a lot. It was alluded that they like tried a bunch of different things. We didn't really see that.
Mhm.
So I felt a little bit cheat. I was like, wait, are you having like kinky sex? And I'm not like, why am I not seeing the kinky sex and just the regular sex?
Yeah, and I feel like I remember like people saying like, "Oh, this one's like way spicier than the first one," and I'm like, "Is it?" Like I feel like this book had a lot of, and then they hooked up. You know, like it had a lot of that where like the
Yeah.
sex was implied.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with the romance. I I was like, what is going? Mainly because I felt like Buffy was just not in like a good place to be doing anything with anybody. And then Santiago honestly did not have enough self-respect to tell this woman no. Like, I don't care how good the dick is, how good the pussy is. Like, it's like, stop it. Stop it. Cut it out. Have some self-respect.
I
Um
just want to fuck you. Then leave.
but I mean, I got it. I think under the assumption that this is a romance novel, I got it. I went with it. It also threw I did feel like a lot of this book was like whiplash, whiplash, whiplash. Like, and now this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And I thought it was hot. I thought it was like sexy when it was happening, but I was also like, okay. I literally had the same reaction where I was like, are you sure? Because I think that at that point, we're supposed to feel like she's already done her homework and we didn't see it. Like, so what's just try saying? Like, I didn't see it on the page. So it was a little bit hard for me to be like, okay, okay.
It's like the Aurora's Angel book. Listen, they only knew each other for like 7 days, but I was ready for them to get married.
Yes, absolutely. And I just feel it's different. I feel it's different. Like for queer people, I just feel like it's different. When it's like, it just doesn't
A
sit well when it's
straight
like,
man? Ew.
oh, ew,
Get
but the
away from
ew.
me with your intense affection.
And that's not to say that like straight people, like cis people can't like, you know, fall in love very quickly. I just feel like I want to say 90% of the book is Buffy like, fuck you, get away from me. Actually, I'm rejecting you. I'm leaving. You should leave. I'm leaving. I'm going to a different country despite your personal tragedy. And then they're like, okay, I'm happy, or let's get married. And I'm like, bro, what is going on? This book is wild.
But okay, can you clarify for me? Because his grandma was sick and she left and then she died while she was gone.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, she had like a stroke. Buffy sees her getting put into like an ambulance and is like, "Bye, peace out. I'm going to
It's
Spain."
like,
Did not
wow,
even
it
wait.
sounds like I'm
heal.
gonna have to do a lot of emotional labor right now.
Yeah, like
No,
she didn't
thanks.
even wait to get an update. Like, oh, she's stable. Like nothing. She just booked that flight and left, and then was shocked that like.
Ay, se murió. I
No.
will never leave you again,
You know,
Miss
la mandada de
Rosa.
carajo that I would have given her when I saw her next. I would have been like, you know what, bitch, we're
She
done.
shows up. She's like, "Oh, let me help you feel better." He's like, "Put your fucking shirt on. Get out of my house. This isn't what this is anymore."
It was rough. It was rough for me too. I felt like I had to do a lot of work to buy into the romance, buy into their even with me trying to like contextualize all of Buffy's behavior, I was still like, I don't think these two should be together. But far be it for me to tell two crazy ass people to not rush into things. They've already had unprotected sex, so be it. Um, moving away from the romance romance stuff. So one of the things that I thought was interesting was a discussion around like native pain and how because the board was non-native, right? That Buffy had to really play up that like tragic aspect of like indigenous folks. And as a way to secure funding. So I kind of wanted to know what your thoughts were about that. Like, what are your thoughts on the fact that this is kind of like what sells when it comes to like marginalized voices? I know that Andrea and I have talked a lot about you know, the kinds of stories that we see from Puerto Rican authors or, you know, just the kind of books that I feel like there's more stories to tell in this place. And I feel like I'm not getting those stories. I just keep getting the same kind of like sad story. And as someone who went through something pretty traumatic, it's like I get tired of seeing the same kind of story told over and over again. Like there's more stuff to talk about. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, because I thought that it was an interesting piece, like one of the more interesting pieces of the world of, you know, Buffy having to give so much energy to this that, you know, she feels like is not necessary, but because it's the way that the world works, so people who hold the money want to hear the story, right? So she had to do, and she very quickly burned out, such as life in the nonprofit world. So yeah, any thoughts on that? Any experiences you want to talk about?
I mean, as someone who has worked in the nonprofit world, yeah, I mean, I've lived through what she's done. You know, I've had to parade the poor little Latinx kids who live in the trailer park around for the donors, because it is what it is. It's like I get the situation she's in where like it sucks and we wish the world wasn't this way, but at the end of the day, if you want to help people, you need the money. And the people who are donating the thousands and thousands of dollars um, are usually very rich white people. So I know I certainly had to do it when I was working with the Boys and Girls Clubs. Because that was the way to like get the rich Virginians to pay up. And yeah, it is unfortunate. I don't know what the solution to it is, because if you don't pander to the donors, then you don't get the money, and that's just how it is. um so I really felt for Buffy in that sense, and that's why I think I wanted to see more of her job, because I think it would have helped me empathize with her more, and just, see the more like reasonable sides to her, like her being upset about something that was genuinely worth getting upset about. um but yeah, definitely have experience in the nonprofit world, and it's rough. I think that was also a problem I had with the ending, because I was like, these people would not let her go work remote. What are you talking about? Because then how can she go to the board meetings and like she's you know what I mean? Like they need her indigenous face to be in person in front of the people. But anyway,
Buffy, we need you to turn your camera on so they can see that you're brown.
yeah,
Buffy, please.
literalmente.
Your name is not authentic. for the people in the room. We need to see it.
Please, everyone, put your first and last name in the Zoom chat. Yeah, no, I felt for Buffy, and I obviously, I feel for Dani as an author too, because it's hard to, as a marginalized author, kind of find homes for your stories. Obviously she's an indie author, so she has a little bit more control in terms of like what she puts out, but um it's hard out there, and as someone who is in that publishing world, um most of the people making the decisions about books that get published, like said board members, are white women, is what it comes down to. And oftentimes it's like they're like, okay, well, we already have a Latinx book coming out in the fall. We already have like 2 Black books coming out in the summer, so it's like, oh, do we need any more? It's very much like that. And it's hard. So yeah, I feel for Buffy in the book, and I also feel for all creators trying to put out stories that do not revolve around what sells to people outside of their identities.
I don't have firsthand experience just because my closest thing to that is just like trying to see if I could get any sort of scholarships and being like, I don't have money. I'm from Puerto Rico and we're poor. When I was trying to like study and get like access to higher education. But I think as far as like Buffy's experience, and at least what I've witnessed when it comes to like creating art and getting art out there, it's almost like if you don't use that first opportunity to highlight like your otherness, then you're not going to get the attention and funding necessary to be able to do like more projects. So it's like your first project or your first thing, your first book, your first exhibit, like the first thing that you put out there, if you're someone who's representing like a minority community or like a disenfranchised group, it's almost like that has to be your like it has to vouch for you being part of this community. Like it has to be your um experience showing why that community like struggles, and this is why it needs attention, because there's so little attention given that it's going to be given to the thing that is the most like traumatic, like the thing that has the most trauma, that is the most like eye-catching. And then once that gets your foot in the door, then you can have something that still portrays the struggle, but maybe the person gets a happy ending after the struggle. Like maybe the negative is there, but you also get to show some of the positive. And then if you get to have another project, like if you get more funding, then you can do stuff where it's like, hey, actually, I'm just trying to tell the story of a character who has magic and they happen to be indigenous, or they happen to be like Black Mexican, or they happen to be queer, or they happen to be non-binary. And that's not the selling point of the story. But I think for primarily white audiences, if the character doesn't look like them, then they don't understand the story. So the story has to be so foreign to their experience that their like participation in it is an act of like being open-minded and being like educating themselves and like helping to lift up the minority, because I'm buying this book and I'm doing my part to help them because they're not like me, but like I can help them in this way. That's my like analysis of the situation. It's like it is an act of like pseudo charity on the part of the people holding the purse strings to make themselves look like, oh no, the system is fucked up, we don't believe in the system, everyone should get a piece of the pie. But like the only ones I see are the ones that are the most miserable, because I don't want people from these communities to like make it up here, because I'm up here and I like it up here.
I feel the same way about like queer stories as well. I feel like we're finally moving away from like every blockbuster movie has to be about queer trauma and you know, like every story that's told has to be like this tragic story of whatever, and I just want like joy, you know? So I appreciate, you know, having romances like this because I do want to see it. It's just but that is the reality of the world. And I think that both of your experiences, my own experience with nonprofit is I've never been on a level where I have to like kind of like fundraise. Like I'm just kind of like I was very low on the um chart as far as like, you know, I was just a program assistant, but it was one of those things that really upset me because I feel like these people are just doing their best, okay? And I don't need them to I don't think it's I wish that they didn't have to write these like letters to the donors so they can get a bicycle or whatever. It just seems so odd to me. Obviously you want them to get bikes. I just hate that they have to do that in order to get those bikes. That's the part that I get grumpy about. Um, I feel like rich people should just be doing that shit. I don't want to pander to you, but that's not the world we live in. I just thought it was one of the good things about this book. I feel like it touched on the fact that marginalized folks, specifically in this book, indigenous folks, have to do that and how much it takes from you, how much it takes out of you, because you are not just the pain that you have suffered through your whole life. And having to play that up is exhausting. Having to constantly like bring it up, having to talk about it, elaborate about it, display it. It's not your entire life. So I totally understand why someone would burn out for that. And I thought it was one of the good aspects of the book, I feel. Um, I only have two questions left, and it's back to the book. We're going back to the book, zooming back in. Was there a side character that you would have loved to see more of? Here are the side characters that I remember. Abuela Paulina, which is Santiago's grandma, Pear, which is a funny name, and also his cousin. Camila, which is Buffy's roommate, Miguel, who is her brother who just got out of jail. And then Elena, this trifling ass bitch. Okay, I'm sorry. That's who I want to talk about. I want to talk about Camila
Yeah.
and Elena.
I wanted to see Elena. I was like, first of all, I would never date someone for 10 years without that person making me their girlfriend. But I also know that does exist because one time I remember when I was in Puerto Rico, when I was going to La Inter, I was listening to some radio show on the way to night class, and it was literally people calling in and talking. Like that was the theme. Like people were talking about these like long situationships they had been in or like affairs they had where it's like they'd been with this person for like 15 years and they were never going to leave their wife. And I'm like, 15 fucking years. Anyway, my point is, if I was Elena, I would have already broken up with her. But seeing as how that was clearly not going to happen, I wanted to see her and understand their relationship. And I don't know, maybe that's Dani's next book, and she like left it vague to. Okay, well then I wanted I wanted more. Chris was shaking the head, so I'm gonna, como son panita. Chris has inside info.
Oh my God, I'm
Dile a
just
Dani
saying.
que escriba ese libro. The world wants to know what happened with this chick. Like, ¿qué pasó con esta persona? Que 10 años. Asumo que le están pagando las cosas porque yo no sé.
But just didn't feel like it was very fair. And I felt like weirdly, because we didn't get to see Elena on the page, that it was very much like, well, this is what Camila is saying, but like, I don't know if this is what Elena is feeling. You know, like, I agree. There are people who are very comfortable having a situationship for decades. Whatever. That's your business, not mine. However, the way that this situation kind of happened, it really felt to me like this is not what Elena wanted. And if they had been, I don't know, on the East Coast, Elena would have taken Camila to the queer ultimatum for sure.
Sí.
Taking her ass to the show and been like, put a ring on it.
Absolutely.
Every time it got brought up too, it was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, pues tú no estás orgullosa de lo que estás haciendo.
Yeah,
Porque
you know
si
you're
tú estuvieses
wrong.
orgullosa
You
de
know
lo que
you're
estás
fucked
haciendo,
up
you
for
talked
that.
about it. If you didn't think what you were doing was wrong, why would you have a problem?
And then Camila's like, oh, you shouldn't treat Santi like this because he's
Vete
so
para la
good."
puta mierda.
That's what I'm saying. She's such a hypocrite. Fuck her. She
Yeah.
sounded like a real piece of shit. And then, yeah, she seemed really chaotic. I liked Camila as a character. I like her chaotic energy. I did not love how she treated Elena
Que la dejen.
and
Yo
how
quiero
how
ver
how
que
the
Camila.
author allowed Camila to treat Elena, if that makes sense.
Yo
Mhm.
quiero ver
Like
una
if
escena donde a Camila la manda para el carajo.
yes,
That's what I want. The arc for Camila to like heal in the fourth book es que le den una buena manda para el carajo. Que se le inunde el apartamento and then trata de ir a meterse con Elena and Elena is
very
like,
kink is karma. My kink is karma. I want every
yeah,
terrible thing that could happen to you. I want it to happen to you so that
exactly.
you know how good it was when you're with me.
The book is going to be called Cambiando a Camila. And ya, toma, Dani. Podemos hablar. Hacemos brainstorming. Tengo mi
It
post.
could have been chingando a Camila, but Camila fucked it up.
Mira, por favor.
Ay, Dios mío. El
Okay.
prequel, Juliando Camila. Juliando con Camila.
Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. Did you want to talk, or did you have any other side character that you feel like deserve more spotlight?
I like the old people. They seem nice. I like the crotchety old people. I wish we had gotten to hang out with the oldsters more, but then it would have been like in the center, and then Buffy would have been pissed because she's like, no chavo para los viejitos. Viejito lo que quieren es jugar dominó, déjalo quieto.
I definitely want that. I want that though. Like I want that book. I want drama in the home.
Okay.
And I wanted to see more of Abuela Paulina's romance.
Right. That was really cute. I thought that was going somewhere for
But
real.
then she just dies y el viejito está como que pues life
Yeah,
happens.
and that was such a bummer. I was like, dang.
Así pasa el tiempo. Así pasa. Cada verano le llega su otoño.
My last question for tonight is, so there aren't that many indigenous romances that I know of written by indigenous authors. I am guilty of reading Patricia Briggs's books. I have enjoyed them for a while, that Moon Calling. I have evolved. I don't do that anymore. But I kind of want to know, like, what do you want to see more of? Like, what do you want to see more of as far as like maybe romance, a specific trope, a specific story, a retelling? Is there anything? Oops, sorry, I hit the mic. Is there anything that you're wanting to see more of, or something that you want to see from Dani in the future that isn't like, incomplete world building?
I don't think I really know much about what it is like on a reservation. Like, I don't know much about that experience at all. So, I think even if you did like a romance retelling, but it's set in that kind of space, I think that would be really interesting. It'd be really educational, at least for people like myself who have no understanding of how it works. All I know is that they don't have enough resources and like
Outside of Twilight.
oh my god. Outside of forks. Um all I really do know is what you find out about that is like the negative, which is like the lack of resources and the fact that like the fucking colonization and people losing their land rights. Like I know about that stuff, but I don't know much else. So, I think a nice like crossover opportunity is some sort of a retelling because then it's like a familiar story, but then you can infuse like your own cultural perspective into it and then also have the like setting be something that represents the actual lived experience. I think something like that might be really like would be really fun to read. Because I do find that interesting and I like went through a whole like short story reading thing I've mentioned before. Like I used to read like Native American short story collections and like different short stories from like like that's my window in for a lot of like different cultures that I might not necessarily have a lot of like exposure to, especially with just like not having libraries when I was younger. So it's like, oh cool, multiple stories. So I think even if it's like a collection of retelling of classic tales, but through the lens of that could be really cool. Like shifting, like a shifter, like even if you're doing like a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but it involves like a shifter component to it, like something like that could be really cool.
I'd read all of that. I would read Wuthering Heights on the res. Oh yeah. What about you, Drea? What you want to see more of?
I mean, I feel like we need more of this in general across all cultural identities, but I would always take more survival romances where where they're out in the wilderness. I have read too few of them because there is not that many, and the ones that are all straight and white. Um, so I would love some sort of wilderness survival, and I feel like I've read several of them that are more on the either the dystopian specter or like the horror specter. Like I feel like people when people think survival, I feel like they gravitate more towards end of the world or horror survival. But like forget there was only one bed. There was only one tent. That's where it's at for me. And I would love to see that combined with the sort of like maybe I don't know, maybe you just have to like survive with like the way your ancestors did kind of situation, but also it's a very erotic romance because I have not read that and I would like to. I'm also like I'm very into like all like foraging kind of knowledge, and despite being vegan for over 10 years, I have no problem with like reading or watching things that involve hunting when it's in a survival situation.
Yeah.
So I'd be fine with all of these things. You know, I would even forgive them the no condoms because you're in the middle of the forest. Like, there's none around, you know, like you could do all that.
You can make one out of like a rabbit skin or something. I feel
You've gotta skin it and then use it to help create a giant blanket so you can survive.
yeah.
You need it for warmth, Chris. You can't use it. You can't
So
use
yeah,
it for
more
water.
more survival romance. Of any kind, but specifically I feel like anytime, and I think obviously part of this is what we were talking about of like people write what they think will sell, right? And a lot of I feel like we talked about like the native pain, a lot of that native pain with the younger generations is tied to the fact that they feel like they are losing that connection and that knowledge. So I feel like when I do read books that have to do with survival or going back to the land, it does tend to be very like trauma heavy because it's usually people trying to learn how to do things that their ancestors once did so easily and they like feel disconnected from. But I feel like you could kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be that way. And it could
Yeah.
be a joyful romance where they're just out on the land having sex and surviving, and I it can be done. I'm waiting for someone to do it so I can read it.
Maybe
I
it's
would
an
buy it so bad.
educational retreat. Maybe it's someone trying to learn so that they can surprise their family with the skills they've learned, and their guide is hot as shit, super hot. And it's
Okay,
gay.
but they have to be on the run for some reason. So
Um,
thing happens.
Well, one of the cool things is that we have our Only Lovers book club romance challenge. One of the prompts is an indigenous romance by an indigenous author. I have added this book because this is the book that kind of like completes the prompt, but other people can add the books. And there's another one here called Seducing His Secret Wife, Red Hawk Reunion #2 by Robin Covington. So if you're looking for another indigenous romance by an indigenous author, someone has put the list here, and I'm sure there's lists online. Well, those are all the questions that I have. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about? Any final thoughts? Anything of that nature? But before we move on to the closing segment of book club.
No, but I do want to I just remembered that Danny also writes horror. So I would take a horror survival romance too. Just putting it out there. She could make it scary. I'd still read it.
All right, cool. I'm probably gonna check out the next book that she writes. I like the characters. I just want to see what's up. And I want to keep supporting her and other indigenous authors as well. So yeah, we're done with this one. Tell me, what else are you reading? If you're not reading anything because you're being bullied at work, what are you listening to? What are you watching? How are you spending your time?
I'm reading The Thought of You, the sexy Anne Hathaway movie, The Idea of You, the sexy Anne Hathaway movie.
Oh, the baby one, right? Where
Oh,
he where he- it's like an age gap.
yeah, he's not a baby. Although in the book, the age gap, he's 20, she's 40. I was like,
Yeah, okay, he's a baby.
wait, he
What?
can't
I'm
be
just saying.
21? He can't even drink. Okay. So in the book, the age gap is much bigger. In the movie, it doesn't feel because the actor's like 25. So it's not, and Anne Hathaway's a fucking hottie. Um, and then I got the breakup lists from the library, which is our next read. So I have that one ready to go. And then I borrowed a book from the library that I heard was really interesting that I haven't started reading yet called Raw Dog: The Naked Truth About Hot Dogs.
That book is so good.
Part
It's Amy
travel log.
Loftus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. It's not spoilers. It's not like a ton about hot dogs, but it's good.
I'll read once I finish that. I'll pick up the breakup lists, which is so cute. The cover it's so colorful. I'm excited to read that one. I hope that we enjoy it for book club.
Andrea, what are you reading?
Well, I know this will mean nothing to you, Tosh, because you're not really like in the bookstagram space, but in August everybody's like, we must read poetry books. It's like the Sealy challenge. And everybody's like trying to read poetry books. And technically the challenge is you read one poetry book a day. I'm never going to be that person because I don't read poetry that fast. Pero I do usually get like encouraged by seeing people constantly posting like really diverse poetry collections. And so I usually end up reading a couple just because I get inspired. Um so this is the first one I got from the library. It's called Thick with Trouble. I really like Amber McBride. I've read all of her YAs. I've read her middle grade. She writes in verse. And I've met her. I've been on panels with her. Yeah, she's like really fucking cool. She used to teach at the college level at UVA for a really long time, and she just like stopped and started writing full time. So good for her. Pero anyway, this is her first poetry collection, and it's she practices hoodoo and does a lot of stuff around that, and that's like what her PhD is in, I think. So she like teaches stuff about it too. And so this poetry collection is supposed to have a lot of hoodoo in it, and it's also laid out like tarot cards. So I'm just like really interested to read it because I like the author, and also it seems like interesting. So that's my little poetry collection that I'm starting off.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading Las Indignas by Agustina Basterrica. Basterrica, ¿verdad?
Rica.
No está acentuado. So like, yeah. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty fun trip. I read the first chunk of it like today at work. Don't tell my boss. I just didn't have that much to do. And
Your boss shows up.
no, he's fine. Damn it. And then I'm trying to get through my library pile. So I'm making my way through some graphic novels that I have. My favorite things is Monsters Volume 2, and then The Deep Dark, which is also an Andrea recommendation. I've gotten all the holds, and so now I'm just kind of like making my way through them. Although I did buy Las Indignas en Laberinto when I went to PR last time, as well as La Tercera Revolución, I think. So that's what I'm reading. Most of my books are going to get packed up in a couple of days. So I just, kept it really thin. And yeah, that's what I'm reading. And you didn't ask, but I'm watching the new season of Unsolved Mysteries because it's finally out, as well as the Olympics. I'm being forced against my will to watch several events. So yeah, as Tashai said, next month we're going to be reading The Breakup Lists by Adib Karam, and I'm really excited. I too have read the Darius the Great, Dariush, and I'm really excited to read another one. I didn't even know he had something out, I'll be honest. And so
Yeah, this is his fourth book.
yeah, this is the magic of book club. I find out about cool stuff, and then I get to add a bunch of stuff as well. So yeah, don't forget to
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go for it.
No, I was just gonna say, like, for anyone listening who's finding out, like, other than the Darius duology, he has one that's like a boy band singing romance, and then the breakup lists.
Cool.
Those are his 4 Ys, and then the adult one that comes out next
Forthcoming.
year. Forthcoming.
Repeat offender for sure. Okay. Well, cool. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your thoughts about the book and, giving me just giving me your thoughts. I always appreciate it. And it always makes for a really good conversation. You guys are so wise and so smart and so funny. So thanks. Love you. Folks, if you're listening / watching, don't forget to, we have other videos here. We have over 100 episodes for you to check out. If you like, romances with difficult love interests, then I will direct you to the Horseman series. However, also you can check out Stars in Their Eyes. That was also a really good one. That was by Kason Calendar, and we had a really good discussion about fake relationships and toxic relationships and celebrity culture. So that was pretty good too. But yeah, until next episode, goodbye. Thank you for making it to the end of our episode and spending some time with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club for free by subscribing to our shows and sharing our episodes. Unless it's sharing it to Dani Trujillo, don't send her this. Make sure to like the video or leave us a comment. And if you're listening, leave us a review. If you are on iTunes, leave us 5 stars. Leave us a nice little, just write like, this podcast is great. I love it so much. That's it. That's your prompt. If you're on Spotify, you can rate if you don't want to leave a review, but you can also leave a review. It helps, people find us and, they think we're cool and legit. You can also become a supporter on Coffee, buy books from our bookshop. All of these links are in the description box. You can follow us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club.